In the last video, we have seen how to use various relational operators with the scalar data, that is numerical type of data. So, these relational operators can be used with the sequential type of data also. All the relational operators in Python can be used with various types of sequential data. They can be used with the strings, lists and also tuples. So, in this video, we will see how various relational operators can be used with the sequential type of data like strings, lists and tuples. Let us assume S1, S2, S3 are three string variables, the S1 having ABC, S2 having ABC and S3 having DEF as the data. So, S1 equal to S2. The content in S1 and S2 is exactly the same. So, that is how S1 equal to S2 is returning a true value. Now, let us apply this equality operator on S1 and S3. Actually, S1 is having the string ABC where S3 is having the string DEF. So, it should return a false value. So, that is how you can use the equality operator. Similarly, you can use the not equal to operator also. Here S1 is not equal to S2, it is returning a false value as S1 and S2 are actually having the same type of string. So, S1 not equal to S3 is returning a true value as S1 and S3 are actually referring to different string contents. Now, let us see how you can use greater than and less than operators with strings. S1 greater than S2 is actually returning a false value. So, let us see the details. For the convenience, I am using so let us take the strings itself. Now, let us compare ABC and ACD. The strings ABC and ACD, it is returning a false value. So, how it decides the false or the true value on the relation is, first it compares the first element of the two strings A and A, both are equal. So, it cannot decide. Then it proceeds with the next operator B and C. So, here B is greater than C, it compares. So, B is not greater than C, right. So, it returns a false value. Whenever Python looks at the corresponding characters where it can decide the inequality, it stops checking and it returns the result value. Here, based on the second character, it can decide that the strings are not equal to. So, not only with the strings, so the same thing is applicable with the lists also. So, here in this case, I am comparing the strings DEF and ABC for the greater than relationship. So, actually how it does is, it checks the corresponding characters in both the strings. So, D and A, it will check first whether D is greater than A or not. So, here D is actually greater than A. So, based on the first character itself, it can decide and it will return the result. So, irrespective of the remaining characters, wherever it sees a mismatch in the character and if it can decide, then it will return the result. So, now let us consider comparing these two strings. So, here A greater than A, so it tried to compare, so it cannot decide, but B is greater than A. So, here itself it can decide. So, irrespective of the remaining characters, so whenever the corresponding characters mismatch, at that position itself it will decide whether the strings are greater or less. So, you can similarly use the less than relationship also. So, here it returns a false value. So, first it compares A and A, so it cannot decide, but B and A it compares. So, B is less than A, it is false, so it is returning a false value. So, that is how you can use the relational operators with strings. Now, let us see how you can use relational operators with the lists. So, the lists L1 and L2 are having the same number of elements and also the elements are also the same. So, now let us apply L1 equal to L2. Of course, they are same in number, same in the elements also. That is how it is returning a true value. So, you can even apply not equal to. So, L1 not equal to L2 is false because the lists L1 and L2 are true. Now, I have another list L3 with the elements 100, 10, 20, 30. So, let us compare L1 with L3. So, here how it happens is, so L1 is the list with the elements 10, 20, 30, 40, whereas L3 is having the elements 100, 10, 20, 30. Here also similar to the case of the strings, the element by element comparison happens. So, 10 is compared with 100, 10 greater than 100 is false. So, based on the first element itself, it can decide L1 is greater than, L3 has to be returning a false value. That is how it is returning a false value. So, now consider this example, 10, 20, 30 is one list and 10, 500 is another list. I am going to compare these two lists. the first element in the corresponding list will be compared first, then 10 greater than 10, it cannot decide, so it proceeds to the next element, that is 20 and 5 are compared, then it returns a true value as 20 is greater than 5. So that's how the greater than, less than or the equality operators can be used with the list also. The working of these relational operators with the tuples is the same as that of the list. 10, 20, 30 is less than 10, 20, 30, because they are the same, it returns a false value. Let's consider this example. So here 10 less than 0, so it's false, so it's returning a true value. So now let's change the first element to 100. So here it returns a true value because 10 less than 100 is true. So whenever Python interpreter come across as a mismatch in the corresponding element, at that point in time itself it can decide. Now I hope you understand how the relational operators can be used with the strings, lists and tuples. Thank you for watching this video.